This is Kristin.
And this is Steve.
And this is Cycling Together with Kristin and Steve.
Yes, the cycling podcast about all things riding and riding together.
And we are still doing it. My mom said to me the other day, she watched one or two of the episodes and said, it's every week? Every week you're going to do this? And I was like, yeah, that's
every week.
We'll see how it goes.
Did she watch or listen?
She watched.
Oh, she watched.
She did watch,
okay.
I think. I don't know. And I've heard from some friends. I heard from a former, a mom from my Girl Scout troop who watched. And she said, I'm not even interested in planning a cycling schedule, but I enjoyed watching you. And I enjoyed, just seeing how you're doing. And so I thought that was great.
Right.
So thank you to everyone who's listening and watching. It's awesome. You got us back here. What are we talking about today?
Night riding. So this is a topic that came up from our ride last week. So not only night riding, but night riding. We're going to add an added topic on top of that, and night riding in the cold specifically. And I can see from all your notes that there's a lot of stuff about warmth.
I try to do show notes ahead of time, and I was like, okay, what are the challenges? Visibility, warmth, keeping up. That's me. Staying warm. Apparently, I'm quite upset. I am quite obsessed with being warm.
Right.
I think that's one of my bigger challenges when we talk about night riding. But let's start with where night riding starts for you. When I'm a newbie. I'm still figuring out riding at night. You're not.
Right.
So let's go back in the Wayback Machine.
Oh, in the Wayback Machine. So night riding sort of had its origins in central New York in the 80s, where a couple of teenagers would have a sleepover and then in the middle of the night sneak out and ride their bikes 5 miles down to the other end of the lake to their girlfriend's walkout basement who were having a sleepover. And that's
for your reading club.
That's how, as far as I know it, that's how.
For your book club.
For the book club.
For your book club.
Yep.
You used to tell this story to one of our friends, and who had daughters. He was always
this wasn't me. This was just a couple of teenagers. This is the origins of yes.
Origins. Yes. Yeah. I remember our friend being like, "Well, remind me to keep the door to my basement locked."
See, those are the good old days. There were no cell phones. There was no GPS. There were
no Life 360.
Nope. No, there were. Nobody had. I believe they existed, but nobody had floodlights that came on when you walked up to a house.
Right.
Yeah, that just wasn't there.
There were also no helmets. There were also
no. We didn't. Nope. There were no helmets. Well, not really. No. Didn't. Yeah. Helmets didn't really come until the late 80s.
Mostly in the fall or summer.
Yes, sure.
That these children, teenagers would have been doing it.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons people ride in the evening. They're commuting. But for what we're talking about.
Yeah. So there's there's transportation riding in the evening or the night in the dark. For commuting, for delivery people who have to get around on their bike.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother topic because they need to be seen and to see.
Right.
And we're talking more recreation riding, which really means off-road riding. Right. Whether gravel or mountain. And in this case, we need to see. You don't really need to be seen unless there's going to be some road segments.
And it's really because if you want to be outside, if you want to ride outside, and you have a job,
and it's wintertime and it gets dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yep. So we have a group in the town that the shop is in, aptly called the Friday Night Ride, Riders, right?
Yeah, well, the Friday Night Ride, and it's the Friday Night Riders, sure.
Where, they are, come hell or high water, they are riding
Absolutely.
on Friday night, year round. And so, we went on Friday, which inspired this.
Yeah, it was
idea.
FNR number 3 of the year, and we weren't able to make number 1 and 2, so I think this was number 3.
Yeah. So, so a couple things we're going to talk about we're going to talk about kind of the challenges of riding at night. We're going to talk about how to prep. So, where do you want to start?
Well, let's just talk about the experience of riding at night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the good of it is it's it just transforms your trails, right? Like trails that maybe you have ridden time and time again.
Yeah, they're completely different.
They're
in the dark.
completely different in the dark.
Not anywhere remotely the same thing.
Which is good, but also can be the challenge if, say, you're riding with a group of people who are really familiar with the trails. So at night they're not, intimidated at all because while they're different, they're still their trails.
Sure, you know that one rock that might be coming up.
Right.
And you know that one route that's slippery because it's off camber that's coming up.
Right.
Yep.
And then if you're not as familiar, there were a couple of times, because I don't ride the FNR ride as often as you do. So I'm not as familiar with that, some portions of it.
Right.
Where, I mean, literally I would come around a corner and be like, ah, because it was, even with a really good light, it's still really dark. You're not able to see around corners, right? Because if your light isn't pointing at it, you ain't seeing it.
And last Friday, I mean, there was no moon. The stars were all out. It was perfectly still. It was, it was so dark. So,
and it was cool. There was a moment where you, like for the last little loop, you guys kept going, and I turned back to the house, and it, without anyone there, no other lights. It was perfectly dark, right? Like no light pollution, no. If I could see stars, I couldn't because it was trees. It was just trees. It just deep, dark woods. And then I could hear owls, which just was so cool, right?
Yeah.
Like just that moment of, solitude
that
and
winter stillness that you don't
Yes.
you don't get that either in the summer.
Yeah, because there's no bugs. There's no ambient noises. There's no deer.
There's no leaves rattling or rustling. It's just
quiet. It was really cool. It is very cool. It is very cool. But it has some challenges. I mean, because it was cold. We just talked about, like, if you don't know the trails that well, it had snowed recently. So while there wasn't a lot of snow.
Yeah, there was just a thin crust in some areas, but it really wasn't, the dirt wasn't slippery. No, we just had some issues with the wood bridges, which you're always going to have no matter if it's wet at all. You'll always have wood bridge slipperiness.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment of like, yee! And I had at least one where I had to hike a bike because it was an off. They're just, it's one trail that has lots and lots of planks. I don't even want to call them bridges.
Yeah, it's like bridges with planks in between.
Yeah.
So but they're all ground level, if you will.
So you can get on them really easily.
Yep.
Plank, 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 plank.
Right.
But if you had to turn left into them or right into them, that's where, and you didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, and some of them are only 18 inches wide.
Yeah. And there was at least one that was broken.
Right.
Where I was yelling behind me, hole! The guy behind me was like, thank you. And then just, if it's hard to keep up with a group, this is a fast group, let's just say. They're a fast group. You guys did a great job last night keeping us together. But there were moments, because I was me and this other guy, I kept calling our own little B group. You guys were so far ahead that it was like we were alone. Like almost to the point where I thought, oh, did I miss a turn? Because I really did. At one point I thought, wow, it is so dark. It is so quiet. Okay, but I think he's ridden here before. He would tell me if we had missed a turn. So it's just, it's a cool experience. And I do want to do it more. I want to love it more.
So the other night, say we talked about, that the trails have become different and you might know the small little items that are coming up.
Yeah.
But it kept on seeing, like you'd be going through these trails and you're like, I know this trail really well. Why does it seem like I'm on a different trail? Right. And nighttime riding also makes you seem like you're going faster than you are. And that's a really great part about it, especially the downhills at night. And you're sort of flying by the seat of your pants because you can't see everything in front of you, and you're just letting it go. This
is when we are very different riders, because I can tell you I was not letting anything go. It did not feel so this one has a lot of big climbs, and again, you guys are so strong. I was the only woman in the crew. That said, other women have gone and kicked my butt totally. So this is not a woman thing, it's just a me thing. And I would get to the top, and then the downhill would start, and you guys would just be gone. And I like to go fast on a downhill. I can tell you, I was not doing that last night. I was like, okay, I'm going to just go to nice because I cannot see far enough ahead of me. Because again, you can only see as far as your light. And I had a pretty strong light. It wasn't, but I just was like, I'm a little risk averse too. You know, don't mess up the money
so that's
maker.
Where I'm going to put a little bit on me because I turned your light on at the beginning of the ride and I did not put it at a high enough brightness. I think it was on low. And we're going to kind of get into
we're getting into
light
lights.
longevity, but I should have. In fact, your light even tells you how many hours it has of runtime every time you switch to different modes. But it's upside down and it's hard to see on your mount. So I was like, well, this looks fine, and it was a little bit dim.
Okay, well, let's not do that again.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that it would maybe go much faster. And, you know, I always say to people when I'm riding with them, again, it's always interesting when you ride with a group because you can ride with one group and be like, I am the best mountain biker. I am so good and I am so fast, right? And then and I'm so fit. And then you ride with another totally group and you're like, I am the worst mountain biker. I am in the worst shape. I am not fit. I have no skills. Ev and our group, I'm kind of in the like, I have skills. I can be here. And I just have to be okay with my pace, right? Like that. I tell them I'm coming, and I have my Garmin. But that is actually our daughter and I were talking about this, kind of in the context of a couple of other things. But I was like, you have to have that confidence to say, I'm not the best at this. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the strongest. I'm not the most skilled. I'm pretty good. I know I can do this, and I'm just going to do it and be like, okay, right? And because it's not the group. The group is amazing. They are the most welcoming group. So it's all in my own head. And last night I did that great. Like Friday night I was like, this is my pace. Yep. I am a happy little clam.
Yeah, but there were people at your pace.
Oh, the guy behind me. I was like, you know. Oh, my point with that is I'll always say, like, if you want to go faster down, you should go ahead of me because I'm not gonna. This is my pace, and if you want to go faster up, I'm a pretty strong climber. But if you want to go faster up, and the guy I was with goes, "Oh no, I like this pace. This is a good pace." So that's the other thing with a strong group. Sometimes I feel like they're like, "Oh, good, Kristin's here," so we can be like, "Oh no, we had to wait for Kristin." All right, let's talk about lights.
Lights. All right, let's go into the lights.
How many do I need?
All right. So with mountain biking at night, you can get away with just a light on the front of your bike, which I did Friday. It's not right, and because all I had was the light on the front of my bike.
Because you couldn't find you had the light, you just didn't have anything to mount it with.
Right. So, but preferably, and what you should use is a light on the front of their bike and then a helmet light. So one on the top of your helmet.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference in the world because now you have light where you're looking and light where your bike is pointed, which are not always the same thing. So, and I don't know what was going on with my light. Now I had a pretty bright front light.
Okay.
And I don't know what was going on with it.
Yeah.
But it was almost like it had a timeout timer. And so it was like every 20 minutes it would just shut off. And I'm like, uh-oh, I ran out of battery. And I just push the button and turn it on and like, okay, it seems fine. And it would run.
Alarming.
And it would run and would run for a while again and it would just shut off. So it did shut off on one of the big fast descents. Yeah, and it was pitch black.
I would have been
so well, this is where
I would have been like,
this is where I have the capability of sort of slowing down a little bit, reaching up, pushing the button. Right. Unfortunately, it's a push the button, not a hold down of the button, and it came back on, and I was on my way.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 lights, and I do
2 lights.
Agree that helmet light makes a huge difference. So I've had one on the bike, and then this year you put one on my helmet, which I'm like, this is so dorky looking.
But
it's awesome.
No,
like it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about lumens.
All right, so lumens. Most manufacturers measure the brightness in lumens, but there's sort of a little bit to unpack here. and as LED technology has gotten better, the lumens have gone up for the same size light. So you can get basically the same, the same size packaged light that's gonna and the same weight that's gonna go on your bike or your helmet. As you can get up 1,200 lumens now. That was 600 lumens 5 years ago.
Batteries and photo cards.
Yeah, but
they're getting smaller and smaller, but I can get more.
There's a couple of companies though, Outbound Lighting. Now they make really, really nice lights, but you do pay for them. But you're never going to be disappointed in their lights. And they don't necessarily use lumens. They kind of go by a whole
sparkles,
sort of the shadows and so forth. They do a lot with the actual projection of the light. And while they don't have lumens, they're like just phenomenal lights.
Okay.
But for most of the lights people are going to be buying, you're looking at lumens. Yeah. Okay. And so, I mean, if we get into what you need now, so this gets to a little bit of a personal preference that if I had the ability to just basically light up the sky in front of me, right?
Yes.
If I had basically equivalent of multiple car high beams, I don't want that, right? So that
you don't want it to feel like you're riding during the day.
No, that ruins the nighttime experience for me.
Yeah.
So I do want a little bit of that darkness aspect to it.
Okay.
So for me, I like something around 1,200 or so lumens up on the bike.
Okay.
Okay. And then around 600 to 1,000 I can get away with on my helmet.
There seems to be, amongst the people we ride with, I keep hearing about, did you get the lights? Like, is there a light that everyone's getting right now?
They were talking about, I think they're getting the Outbound lights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feel like it's since before Christmas. People are like, oh yeah, they were having, so was having them on sale.
And these are $300 to $450 for the set of lights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a super premium light. It's not in everybody's budget.
Okay.
If you look at the more lumens, the more lumens you have, the pricier the light. And I should also say, like, every light you're probably going to buy for this kind of purpose is going to have an internal battery that's rechargeable. Like, gone are the days of putting in double A's or C batteries in some cases. Those lights are $10, $15, right? Those are just basic, like cheap flashlights that mount on your bike almost.
Okay.
So you're looking to get a light that is, say, 2,000 lumens, you're looking at somewhere around $200 or so.
Okay.
For a front light, and if you get something that's down to around like 1,200, you're probably in the $80 to $90 range or so.
Well done. I'm looking at your website,
yep.
And you have there's a 500 lumens.
Yep.
That's, I think this is the one that's on my helmet.
Yep.
That's about $44.
Yep.
And the 1,400, 1,200 lumen ones, the 1,400 lumen one you have is 100.
Mm-hmm.
The 1,200 is 90.
Good
job.
So, there's a lot more to that though.
Okay.
So one is a lot of people go onto Amazon, and you can do this, and you can get decent unbranded lights, or a brand that's all just a bunch of consonants put together. One of those things from Amazon, and I will say that whatever lumens they are claiming is wrong. It's just flat out wrong.
Because you can put any number in the Amazon bot, and they are putting
any number they want in there. But you can get decently bright ones.
Yeah.
But you really can't go wrong with a big name brand.
Right. Like,
so you got like Lezyne, Sigolite, Knight Rider, the Outbound lights, obviously.
Raveman.
Yeah. Okay. There's a bunch of good, well-established brands,
right.
That really put engineering and design to their
Well,
lights.
and one of the things about light, so you mentioned that you had turned my light, the light on my bike, it was a little dim. Right?
Yeah.
And so we're talking about visibility, but let's also remember that if you're doing a group ride, your light is in a weird way competing with the other lights that might be behind you. Because at one point you were behind me with your full brightness bike light.
Mm-hmm.
And it overpowered my light.
Yep.
So what was happening is I was casting a shadow, right? So you were right behind me. So my shadow is now in front of me. And your light was so bright that my light and my shadow, I had to move. I had to kind of go to the left.
Yeah.
So that you were.
The brightness of what you're seeing on to the left or the right of your shadow
Was
basically outshining the middle. So your eyes can't see as well, even though your light is shining down the middle.
Yes.
It was, I get that.
So it was a little bit, it needed to be turned up. I also found that even just tilting it down a little bit made a difference, that it was a little bit too up. And so by tilting it down a little bit, I didn't increase the intensity, but I had just tilted it. And so now it was more on the ground in front of me than like trying to, it's just interesting. But you don't really think about the fact that if you're riding with a bunch of people that all have 2,000 lumens on the front of their bike and you have 600,
so
you're gonna
one of the times my light went out, there was, we were in just a group and it was just rider after rider after rider. I didn't even realize my light was out until we got to a particular turn in the trail and everybody started separating a little bit, and that's when I realized because there's so many. The guy in front of you has all these lights going on, the guy behind you has lights going on, and you don't, and sometimes you don't even realize.
In a group.
Right, in a group. And especially since I didn't have a helmet light that night. If I had a helmet light, right, I probably would have noticed less. But
right.
And so also with the lights, you need to look at the run times. So this is where it gets a little complicated on what you're looking for lights.
Yep.
So you're looking for the run time you need and the beam pattern. Right? So let's go into run time.
Okay.
So a lot of lights, a lot of lights will have flashing modes, which are to be seen. We're not going to be talking about that because we need to see.
That's if you're on the road
commuting usually. Yeah.
And you want to make sure.
Yeah, and usually that's also during the daytime because right.
Yeah.
So let's say most lights will have 3 levels of light, and at the lowest level will have their longest runtime. Makes sense?
Okay. Yep.
But so there's a lot of lights out there if let's say it's a 1200 lumen light. Well, if you run it at 1200 lumens, it's only going to last an hour. So you sort of need to know what kind of ride you're going to be going on. And honestly, for most people, an hour is just not long enough. Even if you're like, well, this is a 45-minute ride.
Yeah.
But you really push, do you really want to push up against the edge of that light going out? So you want to look at, you might buy a 2000 lumen light because the middle mode might be 1400 lumens and it has a 3-hour runtime, and you say, okay, I'm going to use it in the middle mode. I'm going to get that 1400 lumens, and I'm going to have 3 hours on that.
Right.
Some lights have a little pit meter, or like you were using a Raveman that has an actual LED readout of the hours in half-hour increments. And so that's a way to know how much, and it'll change based on what level you're at.
Yeah.
But a lot of lights and a lot of really good lights just don't have that. So you want to know, okay, I'm going out for a night ride. My light's fully charged. I know if I'm in the middle mode, I should have 3 hours. I'm good, right? And so that's the best way to sort of do it. Is to know your runtime on your light.
Okay.
That you charged it and what mode you're going to use.
Can the cold affect runtime?
Yeah, cold affects these lithium batteries.
Okay.
And everything.
To be aware of.
It is something to be aware of. I have not noticed a difference though in the cold.
Okay. And to your point, mine might have an indicator,
Yep.
but I use so I have my Garmin mount. Underneath it, I have like one of those GoPro mounts
Right.
that we put the light in, which means I would have to basically...
Yes. So you can't see, right. It's very
Not that
difficult.
helpful.
No, you can't. It's very difficult to see
wonder what it's doing.
your readout. Yeah.
Okay. And then you also said beam pattern?
Beam pattern. Yeah. So some lights are if it's like a single LED, then it could just be basically a spot. And so it's just creating a round circular light pattern that spreads out as it gets further away.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's many good lights have multiple LEDs, and you can turn them on, each one on or off. And they'll have a spot pattern. They'll have a widespread pattern. And usually mountain biking, you want somewhat of a spread pattern.
Yeah.
And then the outbound lights, they actually have a unique feature where they have an upper line limit. So you can control how high the beam is going with a very crisp upper limit. So that's really great actually if you're riding on the roads and you can set it like kind of almost like a car headlight should be set where you're not blinding the oncoming drivers. Right? Because you've got it set so that light beam is not above the hood of the car.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah. And that can help on the trail as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So other things, some of them have other features, right? Like I think my Raveman I can like charge my phone on it.
You can. It has a USB out.
Right.
So you could use it as a battery pack if you wanted to. Not a lot of lights have that kind of feature.
Just emergency.
Yep.
Mounting systems. So we talked about mine can go into some of them can go into like the same mount you might put on a GoPro.
Yeah, and most of the big brands will have a GoPro mount adapter for their lights.
Okay.
So you take off, if the light might come out of the box with just basically a heavy duty stretch band that goes around, and you just put it on top of your handlebars, stretch it around, and those actually work really well. Despite the fact that they're just sort of a big stretch band.
Except, I will say, we used to... Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't that kind. So some of them are a clamp, right?
Yep.
And we had one that was a clamp that we were trying to put on my handlebars, but the handlebars were not round.
Right.
The handlebar
So you have a one-piece carbon bar, which is not round towards the stem, and that's why you need to use a GoPro mount.
This is useless.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a round bar.
Onto it. So we had so you need a round bar for those.
Yeah.
All right.
Which most people have.
So anything else you should look for in lights? So cost-wise, we're saying that, you can spend as much as you want, but quality light, you're probably looking at...
If you're going to be mountain biking at night, I would probably look to spend for both the bike light and the helmet light. You should probably budget around $150 to $200.
Okay.
Yep. To get the lights that are going to last you and that you're going to be happy with, and you're not going to say, "Oh, I wish I spent a little more and got those better lights," or that little bit more lumen light.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about. It's cold.
It's cold.
It's cold. What is the coldest you've ridden in, do you think?
I do remember a fat bike ride that was about 5 degrees, I think.
Okay.
It was somewhere in the very low digits.
Yeah. I will say I haven't quite cracked the code on how to dress for cold, really cold riding. Because it's like cross-country skiing or snowshoeing, right? You really work up a sweat, which then can come back to bite you in the...
Yeah, this is where it can actually get dangerous, if you will, cold riding.
Yeah.
So if you're dressed properly and, if you're dressed properly, then the cold is really not an issue. You could be getting ready to go for your ride. And you're like, oh, it's freezing out and so forth.
Right.
And you get all your layers on, you get dressed and you get ready to go out and you're like, well, now it's not that bad. So it is all about the layers, but then when you start riding, you can work up a sweat.
Right.
And if you stop riding, or if you have an emergency or whatever, and you have to stop in mid-ride, and let's say something catastrophic happens to your bike and you have to walk out of the woods and so forth.
Yeah.
If you're sweaty, and it's 20 degrees outside, that's where the cold can really get to you.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with hands and feet, extremities. Because I always say if I keep my hands and my feet and my core, then I'm
it's
doing
really
well.
it's about hands, feet, and
Right.
and core.
And I have, so it was interesting. We were talking on Friday night afterwards with the guys, and they were all great, and they were like, just a good wool socks, and I'm fine. I am never fine. I have what is called Raynaud's, which I actually looked it up because it's like, I have Raynaud's, just so everybody knows what that means. Basically, what it means is that the smaller blood vessels that supply blood to the skin narrow to the point that like I get no blood flow up here. The fingers turn like white. It's mostly women. And actually, as we were talking last night, I was like, this feels like, one guy goes, yeah, that sounds like my wife. I was like, yeah, I'm fairly sure that it's mostly women that I'm talking about who have this, right?
Yeah.
And then when I get in the shower and I try to warm up, it is brutally painful.
Oh, painful.
As it comes back. So I finally broke down and I bought some battery-powered gloves. And these were great. I was a little worried about these.
That was the first use of them, really.
Yeah, I brought
on the
these.
ride.
I brought these with me. I actually got them on Poshmark, so I got them about 50% off. They were brand new in the box. The battery is gigantic. For those who are listening, I'm holding up the battery, but it actually didn't really get in the way. This was a game changer for me on the ride on Friday, because at the beginning of the ride, my fingers were already getting cold. And I have had rides where I'm like scrunching my hand in my glove, trying to get the circulation back.
Yep.
And these lasted a good long while. What I can't figure out is they call these liners. They're pretty thick, and I'm trying to figure out what am I lining? Because this is a pretty, but it's not for mountain biking, so I'm worried they're not like tough enough.
And because of the abrasion of a grip on mountain biking, I'd be worried about wearing through those. So you probably need an overglove on that.
Yes, so we're gonna look into this, but these were great. I have to say, I reached a point where my hands were sweating. And they lasted for the full amount. I have one pip left. So these were great.
Yeah, you probably had them on you had them on even at the after ride fire and so forth. So you probably had them on for 2.5 hours. And
and they were really good. They're from Aurora, which is the place that makes I think the vest every woman I know got for Christmas. Because it's every guy at the thing. So, my wife has that vest. And I was like, yep, so do I. I got it for Christmas. But what do you wear on your fingers?
So when it gets really cold like that, and I'm going to say I really around the freezing point and under, right?
Okay.
So let's just say under 30 degrees. That's where, to me, I don't typically wear gloves.
Okay.
I can get away with ski gloves around 30 or so, but really I'm going for these other mitten style gloves. So you can't use a mitten on a mountain bike because then you don't have braking power. I mean, there are certain brakes that have enough of a long blade on them that you can just grab it with your whole fist of a mitten.
Right.
But the gloves I have a separate pointer finger, and then the other 3 fingers are together. And then this is also this glove is sort of based on a liner with a shell on top of it. So it's sort of
Mavic.
And the lobster claw is sort of the
thing. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, everybody will call them lobster claws. This is another one here. This is where your pointer finger, your middle finger are individual, and then the other 2 fingers are in a pocket by themselves.
Our friends in a pocket by themselves.
Then they have the ones where you basically have sort of the true lobster claws where you've got the 2 separations down the middle, and
like Dr. Spock.
Like Dr. Spock. Those feel weird to me. I don't prefer those.
I just rode with those the other day, and I wish they worked better for me. Just again, my hands get so cold. It was still hard to break. even though I had 2 fingers
Yep.
instead of, so I think these seem like a really cool with the 1. All right. So then feet. This is where I had a failure on Friday. So I have new boots that you got me, which I really like. They have a lot of room in them. So I feel like I can get a nice sock in them. And I tried to use, these aren't the hand warmers, those toe warmers, the chemical toe warmers. Those were just a bust. Those didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, which is surprising. I'm surprised those didn't. They must not have. They must have either been old. Well, it's just iron filings, but so I was going to say old, but
Maybe, but I also think there's not much of those iron filings in those. The toe ones are slimmer, and so I have always noticed they never warm up as much.
Did you
as
put it under your foot or on top of your
top.
foot?
You're
on
supposed
top.
to put them on top. So, no. So now I'm looking at battery operated socks, and we did have one of the riders that rides with me through our women's group. I had posted something about my new gloves, and she actually wrote me to say that she has heated everything. She likes. I was like, maybe I should get footbeds, like heated footbeds, or for heated socks. She finds that footbeds also don't get that warm, and that socks are more flexible. She says, I have 2 pairs of socks. I rotate everywhere. I use them fly fishing, crewing for people at races, outdoor events. She's a very outdoorsy person. Here's my only thing. I have a button on the side of these gloves so I can see what level they're at and how the battery is.
Yeah.
My socks are going to be under like 3 layers of stuff. Like, how do I?
Well, it might be like the bike lights, if that they're fully charged, and when they're on, they last X amount of hours.
Do have some socks that sync to your phone.
See, that seems a little bit too much.
Seems a little kitschy.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm putting it out there if anyone has a good recommendation for heated socks, because I think that's going to be my next. If I can figure out the socks, the feet and the hands, so I'm halfway there with the hands. Feet, I have some time. That is so much of the equation of me being happy.
Yeah.
And then there's the body. So I was wearing several layers. I had like I don't like my arms to get too stiff. Right? I don't like too much fabric on my arms. I feel like I get like this, right? But I definitely was like hot, and then I was cold, and so I haven't quite figured out like what was your layers like? How did you do?
I am sort of fortunate. I believe now that I have been riding long enough that when we need to go out, no matter what the temperature, I always seem to choose the right amount of layers. And it is a random guess of what I am putting on in a way.
Oh, good. So I'm looking for science, and you got magic.
But based, yes, but I have magic for you. So I was wearing. Let's see what I was wearing.
What was the temperature?
It was 25.
It was 25.
Yeah, maybe 26.
Yep.
Okay. So I was wearing a sleeveless craft base layer.
Okay, me too.
Okay. Then on top of that,
what was yours made out of?
Oh, it wasn't wool. It was just
acrylic,
polypropylene or whatever.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. I was wearing the same thing.
And then on top of that, I had a craft long sleeve base layer with a wind block front chest.
No, did not have.
So I had wind stopper front chest.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Then on top of that, I had a wool sweater.
The original athletic.
Yeah, and an athletic wool sweater, not like Christmas sweater.
I love this sweater so much.
And then on top of that, I had an outer jacket.
Okay.
Yep.
So the difference was I had the base layer, I had the craft base layer, but mine wasn't a windstopper.
Okay.
My formula tends to be Steve +1.
Yes, right.
Right. That does generally work well for me. I didn't have a heavier jacket on like you had. I had a windbreaker jacket, and then I had our windstopper vest on top.
Okay.
So,
and how was your core?
When I was riding, I was actually good, but I started to sweat a lot. And I actually think that might have been because the windbreaker jacket was almost the wrong material. It was like it's a rain. It's the Pearl Izumi rain one, you know. I liked it also too because it had bright yellow sleeves, which not so much for someone seeing me so I don't get hit by a car, but so you could see me in the woods. Like if you saw me coming, you could see my sleeves.
Yeah.
I was hoping that would be helpful. But there were near the end when I finally called it, it was because we were standing and I was getting very chilled.
Oh, well, that'll always happen on a winter ride. No matter what you're wearing, you're going to get chilled when you're standing.
And my feet were cold.
If you weren't cold during the ride and you weren't, and even if you were sweating a little bit, you're going to want to, as long as you're like, oh, boy, I'm overheating. You don't think you ever felt that, right?
Do you wear a buff?
I sometimes, but
were you wearing a buff?
But it was not cold enough for a buff for me.
Okay, see, I was wearing a buff, which I love.
Yeah,
I think buff is like the best piece of little magic clothing that makes. Yeah, I always wear a buff.
Yeah, and that prevents the air kind of going down the top, keeps your neck warm, and that also keeps your core. Locks it in.
That's a buff I got. My favorite buff to wear is one we got at Mount Wachusett because I forgot one, and you were like, I cannot believe we are buying a buff.
And we own
have
18 of them.
So many of them from your years of skiing as a kid, and I inherited all that stuff. And I was like, I know, but this one it's fleece on the inside. It's like some fabric on the outside, and it's like got a kerchief bottom.
Oh,
so I
didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it's flat on the top, but then it's cut so it's longer in the front, so it fits in my. I really like it. I'll post a link to it if I can find it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I got it pretty right. Like, so on the bottom, we were both wearing cycling tights.
We were cycling tights.
Yep.
And then over pants. So you were wearing your fairly lightweight mountain biking pants.
Yep.
And I actually had a little heavier weight. We're going to call it sort of a winter jogging, winter cross-country skiing type of pants. I use it. Yeah, they're sort of my winter snow cycling pant.
Yeah.
And if anything, I was a little bit hot on the bottom. Right?
I could imagine you were, because I was perfect. And I think you have to balance, again, like I don't like my arms to be have too much on them. Legs too. We went riding a week or two before that, same ride. And I was wearing a pair of Craft bibs, the bib tights you had gotten me, that when you hold them, you're like, oh, these are so heavy and awesome. And as we were riding, I was like, I hate them because they are so heavy that they felt like restrictive. Like it almost felt like I had bandages on or something. Like I was having trouble pedaling. So probably great for another application. Midnight marathon ride, those pants will be perfect. But trying to navigate the climbs of mountain biking, I actually felt like they were almost like a wetsuit. Like it was that kind of tightness to them. They're not even tight. I think they're actually too big. But yeah, just a basic pair of tights, and then those Scott nylon pants, which those were fine. As I said, I've never been like, oh, my thighs are cold. I'm like, it's hands, feet, head, ears.
Right. Yeah, and then I had a very thin beanie on my head under my helmet, so it just was there really to cover the tops of most, the 3/4 of my ear.
I have to cover my ear completely because if it gets in my ear, it gives me pain.
Oh yeah,
but my head is so big, and every beanie maker thinks everyone's got a little peanut head. That my favorite ear covering is actually a running beanie I got that I cut the top off so I could. It fully over.
So basically
my
a headband now.
Sure, fine. It's a headband. I was just really grumpy that every beanie I put on was like, boop, up here at the top, because I have big brains. All right.
So and then glasses.
Yes.
So we actually are fans. We get like a 12-pack of safety glasses.
Yeah.
Of clear safety glasses.
Like Lowe's. Right.
And they're inexpensive. You don't, if you lose one, oh well. And they're great. I
They
love those
used
things.
to be great for me, and then I got
Right.
prescriptions.
Right.
And now I will say I just got a new pair of glasses. And as I was talking to the eye doctor, I was like, all right, here's what I need. I need a pair of glasses that I can see far away and I can see my Garmin. I need a pair of glasses that go from light to dark. I need a pair of glasses that I can ride in the woods. And they were like, great, we can make those happen.
Wow.
So that's what I have now. They did
Okay.
cost me a pretty penny, but my insurance is pretty good. But that is one thing. I do like a pair of glasses that it's transition. What is that transition, right? Like when they do clear to. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, that's a brand, but
yeah, but it's that idea that it goes from
it's
light
light
sensitive. I've always liked those kind of glasses, and now that I have prescription, I can't use our cheap ones anymore.
Right.
Anything else on night riding? I just have the Night Rider theme going through my head.
All right. Oh, and we didn't talk about rear lights. Not like I would say maybe there were four
couple.
riders using rear
Yeah.
lights. The important thing, and I actually like a rear light. It's a nice thing to follow. But if you're going to use a rear red light at night, no blinking.
No blinky.
and dim,
Yeah.
right? So you just want that sort of faint red glow, and it can be very nice for the riders behind you to, especially if they lose a little track of you, to actually to see you up the trail a little easier. I mean, obviously your headlights sort of going through the woods, but it's remarkable how that sort of disappears into the woods.
So we do have, I always include links to products and stuff that we recommend or we're talking about. Some of these can actually be purchased through Steve the Bike Guy. And then others we will have an Amazon store with some of the items that we have shared. All right, so we will wrap up with our segment we call
Seen While Scrolling.
because we are mad scrollers. I said to someone, I'm a mad second screener. Like I'll watch a movie and be like, oh, that's the actress on Wikipedia, and So what did you see while scrolling this week?
So this is an interesting one. It's going to be more of welcome news to New Englanders. But we just, there was an article about a $2.5 million donation from an anonymous donor to fund what they're calling a world-class mountain bike trail system in western Massachusetts in the Berkshires near Pittsfield. And it's going to call the Shaker Ridge Trails. They already have a website.
Yep.
And what are they saying right now? In the Single Tracks article, it says they're going to have, phase one's going to have 25 to 30 miles.
Yep.
And with a grand vision calling for 60 to 100 miles. So I have looked at the area. They have the land out there. They have the terrain. I mean, this could be another sort of massive destination spot like Kingdom Trails is.
Yep.
Here in New England, and so forth. So that's just, more trails is just super welcoming.
Yeah. Apparently, in conjunction with NEMBA, New England Mountain Bike Association, was part of the funding they got. And apparently, outdoor recreation contributes $13.2 billion annually to the Massachusetts economy.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really considered kind of making it a destination.
Yeah,
for
the
mountain
Berkshires
biking.
are awesome, but like Pittsfield and Adams and so forth, there's a couple communities out there that really got hit hard with the loss of some industries, particularly like General Electric. And so there's some downtrodden communities out there that could use recreation can boost up some of these economies.
Well, because we're already seeing them start to reinvent themselves, right?
Sure.
So speaking of out there, the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art, Mass MoCA is out there. That's a converted mill building, right? Like mill complex. And then when we were out there recently, we noticed that there was a whole line of houses that somebody had taken over all of them and had turned them into a hotel.
Oh, yeah, the row houses.
Very cool. The row houses, which was very cool. So, yeah, I think if this continues to grow, that gives them alternative income. And I mean, it's just a gorgeous area. So if we're also conserving the open space, I mean, that's one of the things when I'm talking to people who maybe have some reservations about mountain bikers in a certain trail system, I think we both would say when we have seen those in the mountain bike community adopt an area, everyone has benefited.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Hikers benefit. It becomes more accessible. It's the signage is better. The bridges are better. Like everyone benefits. So I'm really excited about this. It's one of our favorite parts of the state. So I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really cool. All right. Well, anything else?
I think that about wraps it up. For the show notes, links, or to leave a comment or question for a future show, visit cyclingtogether.bike. And if you like the show, please help spread the word and tell a friend and leave a review.
And that's it. Thanks for cycling together with us.